So this video goes through mental models in systems thinking according to and based on Donella Meadows, who was a very famous systems thinker, and in particular from her book, Thinking in Systems, which is a very well-respected and well-known book that goes through systems thinking, what it means, and which was published in 2015. And really, the mental models, just to give you a quick overview, are really within the context of systems thinking. You can think of them as simplified internal representations of how complex systems work, if this is the worldview or the type of lens that you're using for how you see the world, how you see things work in the world, and how you do your data analysis, your research, and so on. So, Donella Meadows, her advice was really in terms of our mental models, how we construct models within the context of complex of systems thinking, is really about exposing them. So she draws attention to exposing, drawing, critiquing, and reviewing our mental models, and she gives advice on how we do that and the need and why we need to do that. So, in terms of exposing our mental models, the first thing that she suggests is to make assumptions visible, your assumptions, that is, visible, and express them with rigor through the use of structural diagrams, equations, or other mental models. So really make your assumptions about how you see the world, whether it is variables, etc., within that model visible, and express them with rigor. The second thing that she advises is really in regards to mental models is that any models created have to be complete. They have to add up and they have to be consistent. Her third point was that mental models are considered by her slippery, where we may assume one thing for one discussion and something else contradictory for the purpose of the next discussion. So this is something to keep in mind, that mental models are always slippery. Fourth point, putting mental models could be done using diagrams, equations, words, lists, pictures, or arrows, etc., to show what we think is connected to what. The more we do these, the more clear our thinking will become, and the faster we will admit any uncertainties and correct mistakes, and the more flexible we learn to be. So make use of and try to put your mental models in a way that would make it easier to see these connections and to make your way of thinking visible. And the way to do that is by diagrams, equations, words, lists, pictures. There are really no limitations on how you could expose your mental models. Another guidance by Meadows is that having mental flexibility is a necessity because we live in a world of flexible systems. This mental flexibility is defined by her as the willingness to redraw boundaries, to notice that a system has shifted into a new mode, to see how to redesign structure. So being flexible is really necessary because we live in a world of flexible systems. The sixth point that she made was that everything we know and everything everybody knows is only a model. We need to present our models so others can see them, challenge their assumptions, and add their own. And also, she further gave advice in that to collect as many models, hypotheses, or explanations as possible instead of becoming a champion of one potential explanation, hypothesis, or model. All of them should be considered plausible until they get ruled out by evidence. So it's important to really collect as many models as you can, or the hypothesis that you have, or the explanations that you have, instead of just being a champion on just one model and running away with that model. Because as we said earlier, the world consists of flexible systems if you're using that way of thinking. And the final point that Donella Meadows made was that, and her advice is that make models as rigorous as possible. Get them out, test them against the evidence that you have, and be ready to scuttle them if they are no longer supported. By the scientific method. She considered it really hardly done, this particular point in social science or management or government and even science itself. So it's important to really be as rigorous as possible, to find ways to be rigorous. And I'm assuming this really, when it comes to social sciences, management, government, etc., it's really more about your methodology. Again, going back to what Donella Meadows suggested is, are you exposing your mental models? Are you being flexible? Are you thinking about all the assumptions, explanations, the models out there? And are you exposing everything that you know? Is your evidence backed? Are your data and your model backed up by evidence, and so on? So all these things help us to make models as rigorous as possible, to get them out, to test them, and so on. So hopefully that gives you an idea about mental models in systems thinking, as was seen by Donella Meadows in her book, Thinking in Systems.